All right, I think you're back, Ethan. You look like you're mobile. You're moving now. You're not frozen.
Okay.
You
Yeah, I
hear
just
me
connected
okay?
to my hotspot.
Oh,
The
great.
Wi-Fi is
Okay.
pretty bad where I'm at. So
Okay, cool. I was saying to Nicole, I just started recording as well, so I'll make this part brief, but you may know some of this stuff because you're a student athlete. But I wanted to do this recording for the sake of the next person that takes my job and also for future students if they need it. So I'll start by sharing my screen so you're not staring at me the whole time. And we'll use our tutor handbook, which is dated for last year, but will be updated in time for the fall. So there's a lot of things about me in here that are going to change. So all these folks, me and Heather, will both be gone, but whoever's new here will contact you in August and get you hired in Workday. And I'll talk a little bit about that HR stuff as well. But to start, I just want to kind of go through some of the rules around being a tutor so that you guys are aware of those when you get here in August. And there should be a good orientation right before classes begin that should be recorded as well so that you guys have, detail on this from the person who's going to be running it. But since I've been doing it for 9 years, maybe this is a good help for them as well. So the handbook starts with this professionalism idea. So again, you might think of that as dress. You guys are athletes, so you're going to wear sweats and stuff. It's not about being in a suit. Professionalism in this case is about confidentiality. So we want to make sure you're keeping the information about grades and about, their abilities between you and them. With the exception of talking to the academic support folks about things you're worried about. If the meetings aren't going as you would hope, or it seems unnecessary, whatever it might be that you want to talk about is fine. So that confidentiality, again, is in place for everything else, everyone else. The example I like to give is that we had a tutor a couple years ago that was one of our best tutors, inadvertently sort of made a comment to another student, and it was not, intentional, but she said that she works with another student, right? So 2 basketball players, let's say, were in the same class, and she was working with one of them and says to that person, oh, Joe Schmo has a hard time with this too. And then word got back to Joe Schmo that she was saying things about it. Again, it was more like a, hey, you're not the only one, you can do it kind of comment, and it caused problems. So just be mindful of being confidential. In fact, you'll get a form to complete, Google form, that talks about all this confidentiality and some of these rules that you'll electronically sign off on. You should, as I said, talk to the support staff about concerns, and that could also go in the realm of personal stuff. So like this personal crisis, emotional distress. So of course, you're a good person. You would want to help that person, but they might say, don't tell anybody. And you should totally tell somebody and get them help, get them connected to counseling. And that shouldn't be your role. So you could talk to the academic support folks and get them connected. If you can get them to counseling and you feel like it's something necessary, that's fine. But if you're just worried at all, let us know. You might be the person they see once a week for an hour that's friendly and nice and not their best friend that they feel like they can just talk to. So that could happen. This, what you are, what you're not, I think is important. So you are a peer who has had the class and done well and potentially had the same instructor, you never know. So it's pretty small. So you might be able to really help with some of that content for the class, but also you might be helping them as much with their study skills or their note-taking and things like that they might not be doing well. So you can dig in a little bit on that stuff as well. What you're not is a good list to cover too. So you're not there to simply help them do their homework. Just in terms of the sessions, you might find that they bring you homework, right? Like, here's something I got to get done tonight. And that's fine to sort of work on it with them, but be careful, be mindful of doing work for them. I'll talk a little bit about that on the next page, but you want to make sure, plagiarism and cheating and things are not even close. So there's sort of a gray area where you're a helpful person that knows the material. So you want to make sure you're leading them to answers. So sometimes doing homework with them, they need to attempt the homework. They shouldn't come in with blank homework that you sit and go over with them. They should have attempted it and asked you questions. And so you might find yourself even sitting there while they work on it, waiting for them to ask a question or to check the work. So, it's not just about the homework. These other notes are kind of about being a professor. You're not the professor. You're not responsible for their grades. You're not a substitute for lectures. That all kind of goes without saying, but maybe the student, freshman or transfer, kind of thinks that you're more connected to the class than you really are, and they kind of trust you to teach them the information. That shouldn't be the case. You're just a supplement. So if you catch wind that they're not going to class or, skipping because you'll just teach them, like, don't let that happen. But as you guys know, with travel, you might miss some class, they might miss some class and actually be kind of lost and not know that material. And you might find yourself kind of teaching it to them for good reason, I suppose, as an athlete. So keep that in mind. There's sort of a kind of gray area where you might need to help them more than you should, but make sure you're, again, not cheating or plagiarizing or any of that stuff. This handbook is, again, very detailed and very helpful, and will be updated prior to the fall. But I like to hit the highlights and make sure you guys are catching the big stuff, so that want to get that stuff on recording for you as well, for the next person. So this next section is these guidelines, and then there's a section of tips. So the tips I'll let you read or someone read in the next version of this. But the guidelines, I think, are the important thing to know. We've already hit two of them, just to repeat and reinforce: honor the confidentiality of the tutor relationship. So trust is at the heart of any relationship when it comes to tutoring. So, don't go talking about their grades behind their back, and even unintentionally. Number two, under no circumstances should a tutor complete any academic work for a student athlete, for example, write a paper or assist with take-home tests or quizzes. So that take-home idea is something to be mindful of. You want to ask, like, do you get points for this? Is this credit? How much of your grade is this worth? So you want to know that they are doing that work themselves. So it could be that there's, some problem they have and they need to work it through and turn it in. You might need to work a similar problem or look something up on the internet to be able to, get a test for them, and then they can do the work that they need to do. So be mindful of doing the work that is for credit, not for them for sure, but also with them. Be careful of doing it with them, because then it's kind of like you're doing the work for them. Number three, do not lend personal items to a student athlete. For example, money, cars, computers, calculators, umbrellas. That's that extra benefit idea that as student athletes you guys are aware of, but extra benefit, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here to the section that's got the rules straight out of the handbook. This list: providing room, food, or transportation, loaning money, professional services, eating at no cost in local restaurants. I don't know if you do that or not. But yeah, those things that you probably wouldn't think to do or wouldn't do are rules the NCAA has in place to make sure we aren't providing extra benefit to students to come here. So as a employee of St. Louis University and the NCAA, you have to follow this rule, and it can be extreme. The example I always give is that somebody loaned a student athlete thousands of dollars, right? Hey, we're kind of glad you're here. That's extra benefit for sure, right? But if you loan your teammate that you're tutoring $1 for the vending machine, that's also considered the same violation. So be mindful of that sort of stuff, that you're under those same rules, that you can't accept those things when you're a student athlete. You also can't loan them. For the sake of posterity, I guess I'll just say, I don't know where your friendship begins and ends and your tutoring begins and ends. So if you're across campus and it's your friend, like, you might loan them $1. So just know that around here in your role, when you've got your tutor hat on, follow these extra benefit rules. I'm going to backtrack then to the fourth tip, and this does apply to you guys most likely. Under no circumstances should a tutor contact a student athlete's coach regarding your tutoring sessions or academics. So the only reason I think that's there is for student athletes, because you might work with a teammate. You shouldn't talk to coach directly about their academics. You should come to the academic support staff, and then they can filter it to the coach. So be mindful of that as you do that. Mentions here some tips. Again, this is stuff to read, but I think good tips in general for the tutoring appointment. So when you get the new version of this, you can check that out. There's some business stuff there that's maybe a little bit different, and I'll cover in a different section, but there's those rules and guidelines and regulations. So we covered extra benefit. We've also covered academic fraud. So again, no cheating, no plagiarism, be super mindful of that. And then gambling activities, the third one. So again, you guys are well aware of this. You cannot gamble on any NCAA sanctioned sport at any level. So even though we don't have football here at SLU, you can't gamble on football. You can't play fantasy football for money. Like putting money out to win money back is gambling. I always say that I like to do the free contests when it comes to March Madness time. So I'll fill out my bracket and it doesn't cost anything, but I could win money. That's a contest. That's not gambling. So you can do that. You just can't put $5 into an NCAA pool to win money back. So keep that in mind when it comes to gambling. You guys know that stuff. Goes into some things more repeat of that gambling stuff that's that important that it's listed several times. It is permissible to pay you to tutor though, so that's not a violation according to NCAA, so that's good. And then the rest of this, for the most part, goes into the tutor process and how to tutor well. And I'll cover this for the sake of the recording, but I'll also be fairly quick about it just to save our time. But I assume that the new staff and whoever's doing the orientation in the fall will be able to cover more detail about what they expect. So this is the version for me. So this 3-step process is pretty, again, simple and self-explanatory, I would assume, but you're going to get to know them first. So I think that is what sport do you play, where are you from, that sort of stuff. And that can take a little bit of time, but I think getting to know their academic skills and what they're struggling with, that takes more time. That might be a session or 2 or 3 where you discover what's hard for them. And it might be those sort of study skills and note-taking sort of things that I talked about. And that's defining their needs, figuring out exactly what the struggle is and how you can help. And then finding solutions. So that could be varied. It could be things there's a YouTube video that explains it really well. This isn't common, but I have had some tutors ask me if it's okay to reach out to an instructor because they had that instructor. They might be friendly with that instructor and could get some practice tests or practice questions and things. That might be part of a solution as well to provide some extra material. So that's perfectly fine in my mind, but you might want to check with the academic support folks before you do it. And then again, finding solutions could be talking to academic support and saying, you know what, I thought he had it, and then he took the test and it did not go well. When we studied, he knew everything. So I think there might be something, test anxiety, or he didn't have enough time or whatever. And that would be, then we could set up a meeting and try to figure out if there are accommodations that might be needed. So again, it's not your job to diagnose those sorts of things, but you might be the first person to notice it and feel like, well, they're struggling and I want to help. And that might be the way to help, is to ask other people. I go through it pretty quick because I've done it so many times. Any questions at this point? I'll pause in case Ethan or Nicole has a question. Nope. Okay, good. Not good, but if you have one, let me know. Then this is more of a planning process here. It's 3 steps: before, during, and after, but it's got a little more detail about, how you can walk yourself through the session. So beforehand, I usually tell this as the logistics. So beforehand, you'll get an email letting you know that the appointment was scheduled. And that comes through EAB Navigate. So you'll put time in, your available time, into EAB Navigate. And then when the academic staff is looking for tutors, they'll see you based on the class that you enter. So any class you feel like you can tutor is fine for you to put into the system. And that way, and then if you got started on it and you realize like, oh, wait, I took this class 2 years ago, I don't remember this class, or boy, this instructor teaches it way different, this is not what I remember. That's okay. Once you get into it, you could tell us and we can try to find another tutor. But generally you'll get a class then that you can handle. And then it'll tell you to go to the new building, I hope, Champion Center. I just don't know exactly when that's opening. They say October. So I don't know exactly what'll happen from August till it opens. Probably the same process as now. You would meet in the lobby of the athletic department, but there is no lobby of the athletic department. So someone whoever decides what that's going to be will let you guys know exactly what to do. But hopefully that new area is open quickly and you'll meet there. You'll meet in the study hall. And then the awesome thing is there's going to be 2 or 3 tutor specific rooms and also a couple of conference rooms, plenty of space in there to just spread out, or even in the building. So right now we've been so limited with places to tutor, but it's going to be a ton of space that's usable with good light and places you want to be. So I'm excited about that. When I started here 9 years ago, they talked about this building, and I would always tell tutors on the walk, I'm like, hey, someday there's going to be a hole in this wall and there'll be a building. Finally, it's happening, and I won't be here for it. So before you get that email, I'll tell you where to go, what time and the class and the student you're working with. There won't be much to do prior to, other than, you'll know the class. You don't have to go do any refreshing of your memory. You can show up and then sort of refresh your memory in those first couple of sessions, most likely. Then while tutoring, again, we've covered a lot of it. You're going to get to know them. You're going to figure out what they need and try to help them as best you can. And you're going to usually be a good help just because you've been there and taken the class and done well. And then afterwards, we ask for really 2 things: that you report your time in both EAB Navigate. So there's a appointment summary in EAB Navigate for each appointment, and you would go there to just let us know what happened. It's a form that's basically filled in with the info that should have happened, and you can tweak it if it was a shorter appointment or a longer appointment. And then you'll put in some notes. There's a couple of questions you could answer. That's fine if you do that, but there's also a blank space just for what you did. And you might just write in there, covered chapter 3, and there's a test Friday, something like that. So short and sweet works. If there are problems, you might go a little longer, but you can also then contact the academic support folks and let them know if you're concerned about something a little bit more than the average appointment. The other place to report your time then is in Workday. So I know Nicole has worked on campus before. Ethan, have you by chance worked on campus? Okay, so Workday will be new to you. It's pretty easy. You're just going to kind of click into a calendar and put your time in. The only thing I would say to put is like a note or a comment that the person you worked with potentially, just a real short explanation. That'll save the person time that's kind of comparing, who worked when, to know exactly what you did. So you might say biology with Sarah or something like that, right? It could be that simple in Workday. So that's how you get paid, Workday. And we'll talk about at the end some HR stuff that you need to do when you get back to campus. But again, that finishing of doing an appointment summary and reporting your time in Workday doesn't take long, but it's a good idea to do it at the end of the appointment. So Workday has an app you can use. That's pretty simple. You can just put your time in that way. But EAB Navigate works a little better on a computer. So if you have a minute or 2, you can just pull that up and put in the appointment summary so that the staff can kind of look that over and say, oh, things are going good. Or, oh, wait a minute, this guy was 20 minutes late again and didn't bring his book again. So they can have a conversation and you don't have to. It gets into a little bit here, some techniques and learning styles, really. So there's a couple pages of that. Things like paraphrasing, demonstrating, summarizing, things you would think to do, I'm sure, but good reference here for when the time comes. You might help them create a Quizlet or something like that, some sort of testing that would be productive as well. So there's all sorts of things, again, that could help them. Sometimes I suggest with the learning styles part, which is a little bit farther down, sorry, you might find that you're really good at memorizing that written list of stuff, but they can need a visual, and it needs to be more of a chart or a graph or something. So helping them figure out what works for them could be part of it too. And that's kind of getting outside of your own brain and what works for you. So knowing those things are possibilities is good to know as well. I always do mention silence too. So silence in these tutor sessions could could be a little awkward, I suppose. Do you feel like you want to keep going? Like, oh, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. But really letting them work, letting them make mistakes and do it wrong is part of the process. So you don't want to always give them the answer. You don't want to always fill in the dead space. You want to let them kind of think things through. So, if they're bringing you unattempted homework and sitting there and staring at it and not knowing what to do, again, you need to kind of lead them through that a little bit, but really that shouldn't be the case. Usually it should be they've attempted some things and they feel like they're a little lost and they just need a little bit of help. So you might sit and wait for them to work on things, and then jump in when you need to. These next few pages, again, I know you guys can read. So when you get your hands on this this training book that's been updated for the fall, you can read all these too, but it could be tweaked in the future, who knows. But I do think some of these potential situations are important to think about. So I won't go through all of them, but I'll hit a couple highlights. The student athlete's passive and contributes little to the session. So they might just be exhausted. The reason that they're not paying attention or really all there is they might just have had a long day. I think Nicole's already run and gone to class and she's eating right now. And this is the summer and she's already exhausted at 2:30 in the afternoon. So when you get to them at 5 or 6, they might be ready for bed because they had swimming, at 8 a.m. or whatever. So, or I guess weights at 8, swimming in the afternoon, like you might be physically and mentally drained. So hopefully that's not always the case, but if you can cut them some slack if they're just not with it that day. But I would say, the example of somebody who's just doesn't like the class, it's something they have to do and they're not really engaged. Doing your best to sort of get them going, get them thinking, ask them questions about the material that's not just a yes or no. Ask them to repeat back what you've just talked about or repeat back what the book says, what they just read. Get them up and moving. So the new space should be awesome for that. You guys could just change rooms, change venues, go for a walk and come back. All those sorts of things can get you thinking clearly or at least woken up a little bit. Couple more on here. They're all things that could happen and you might want to read through and some different approaches, but the one that I mentioned here out of necessity is that a situation could happen where a student athlete flirts or has a crush on you. So that's a little odd, of course, if that's happening. Of course, that confidentiality, that professionalism that we talked about in the beginning, like, hey, I'm your tutor, like, cool it. If it's persistent and you've told them to stop, you should let us know and probably stop tutoring them for that reason. But hopefully it's just innocent, flirtation. The thing that the university wants us to tell you is that if you are interested in a relationship outside of tutoring with someone, it kind of makes sense. Your peers, right? You might find that person attractive. That's okay. However, you shouldn't have that outside relationship and tutor them. So if you did start a relationship with them because you met and you liked each other, you should stop tutoring them and let the academic staff know that you shouldn't tutor them anymore, just because it's in your best interest too, because if you break up, then you still have to see them Monday at 6 for tutoring. Not a good idea. So you want to make sure you make sure the relationship doesn't start if you can help it, but if it does happen, then don't tutor them anymore. And this is, again, from the university's stance on this, is it's a little odd to me that you are peers, but in the university handbook, it talks about relationships between superior and subordinate. So you usually think of that as a teacher and a student, right? So up until just a few years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, there was nothing actually in the books about it. So they finally put something saying you can't do that. And the university wanted to make sure that we knew that tutors fell in that category, even though it doesn't seem like it. You still are working with that student to help them with their academics. So you shouldn't start that other relationship with them. So know that that's an odd rule, but something to be aware of. The other one that I mentioned is the opposite. They don't seem to like you at all. Like I said, they might not like the class and it's probably nothing personal. So hopefully you have established a friendly relationship in the beginning, but you again, cut them some slack and hope that they are just frustrated with the class and not you. So you can just, talk to them about, if they're very cold to you and standoffish, you could talk to them and say, hey, everything okay? And find out what's going on. And if it's really uncomfortable and awkward, talk to the academic staff and we can figure something out. But again, that's never really happened, but I could see the class part of it being frustrating for them. Kind of backtracking to the learning style stuff. So again, there's a good page here on different types of learners. You may know what type of learner you are. You may not know that, but if you do, you might have experience with, you're more visual and you need that video, you need that chart. Whereas, the auditory learner is going to be benefit just from talking to you in the session, right? Rather than just sitting and reading a book. If they can talk to you about what they read, that's going to help them. So, think again outside of your own brain if you have to. This last page then is about Workday. So Workday is the payroll system. You'd have an app in your MySalute tools, and there's an app you can get on your phone. So the pay goes out on Fridays. So your timesheets are due on every other Monday. These dates will be updated, but you can see here, I didn't even make it to July. So you can see every other Monday, depending on if there's a holiday. So there was a holiday back there in May. And then you get paid on that Friday after you enter time. As I said, though, each session that you work, you should enter time for as you work it. You don't have to. It's not going to screw up the system if you don't. But if you wait sometimes till the 2 week to the payroll due date, you might forget time or something. You might forget to enter it. So you'd have your whole paycheck that gets pushed back 2 weeks. And ideally, it'd just be 1 or 2 hours that you would be short instead of a full pay period. Talk about those hours a little bit at this point. So you're going to enter in EAB the classes and the times and things you can do. So you'll enter blocks of time that you could work, knowing that you wouldn't fill them all up. So let's say your Monday, Wednesday evenings are kind of free. You might put between 5 and 10 p.m. you could work. Then when someone looks to book an appointment based on the class that needs help, they would see you pop up and say, oh, okay, you've got time on Monday. Let's put you in Monday at 6. And then the next person that they look to book with you can't do Mondays, but they could do Wednesdays. So they put a Wednesday at 6. Then you get a third appointment, hopefully. I wouldn't spread it out even more. I'd try to get it back to back. So hopefully that person could do Monday or Wednesday, and then you could do a Monday at 7 to go with your 6. So trying to build back-to-back time and not doing more than the 2 hours in one night, unless we need you to, or you're okay with it. If we ever overbook you, if we put that third hour, and I don't know the new people, so they might do it, that third hour, then just let the person, let the academic people know and say, oh gosh, I didn't think I'd get booked that third hour. I can't do 3 hours in one night just because I have my own homework. So I'm mindful of that. I hope the next person is too. So hopefully you could do 2 on Monday, 2 on Wednesday, work 4 hours that week. And that's usually the setup is an hour-long repeated weekly appointment. That way the person's getting regular help. They might not always need it. A Monday appointment might be a holiday from time to time. They might have just had a test on Friday and not actually need you on Monday. So there's all sorts of reasons that it might not happen every week all the time. But for the most part, that's the way it's scheduled and that's the way it would work. You won't probably get much more. Again, as athletes, you guys, time is valuable. You don't have a ton of time. So I would say that 4 or 6 hours in a week is probably the most you would want to work and you would work. If you put in the system in EAB lets you put in time, not required, preferred time, right? So you can put in those blocks of time. Let's say do the Monday, Wednesday from 5 to 10. That's 10 hours of time. But then you would also put in that you only want to work 4. So then you'd get booked 4 hours, and then the system would let the person doing the scheduling know that you're at your max and they can't book anymore. That's where you might get an email from somebody saying, hey, could you consolidate? Could you do 2 people at the same time? That's an option. But the scheduler would see it as if you're booked and then be able to ask you, hey, rather than add a 5th hour that you don't want to work, or they might contact you and say, hey, could you work a 5th hour, right? And you might say, sure, I can do that. That's fine. Or you might say, I don't know. Could I just combine this other person that's in the same class and put them together? And that's fine too. That way you're still working your 4 hours, but you're getting more people help. And when you work, the group will pay you time and a half. So if you work with 2 or 3, I wouldn't say 4 or 5. That's probably too many people for a group, but I would say if you get 2 or 3 people, you could work with them and then you would report double time. No, time and a half. Sorry, I said that. You'd put in a half hour in addition to the hour as like a prep time. So let's say you had that 6 to 7 with 2 people, you'd report 5:30 to 7. Even though you weren't actually here working at 5:30, you would have the double people. So you'd have some prep time. Let's talk about like no-shows and short appointments and stuff too. So when you're reporting your time, you're going to put in the time that you're scheduled for, and that you work. So those are kind of 2 different things. So if you've got an appointment from 6 to 7, they show up at 6, go till 7, you're good, right? Just report that hour. If they show up at 6:15, they're running late and they texted you and told you, right? And they wanted you to do the full hour or needed the time and you went till 7:15. So that's an hour and 15 minutes, but you only worked an hour. Put in the hour and 15 into payroll because you were here like you were supposed to be, right? If it's short, they show up on time, but they only need you for 35 minutes or so. You were scheduled for that hour, blocked off that part of your life, put the hour in workday. And then in EAB Navigate, when you report what happened in the appointment, you might say, oh, we only went 35 minutes because of this, right? A no-show, right? So you're here at 6, ready to go. Probably you're at 5:45, whatever, ready to go because you're on top of things. But 6 o'clock rolls around, they don't show up. You reach out to them, you shoot them a text if you have their number, you email them. EAB Navigate has some communication ways you can contact people through there. And then 15 minutes go by, you don't get anything back, nothing, no help, or no response. You can go after those 15 minutes of being there and waiting. Hopefully they respond at some point, but if not, again, it's just a straight no-show. But you were here, you were doing what you're supposed to do for that full hour, you should get paid. So you'll report that hour in workday. So typically you're reporting hours, right? Sounds like you're always just putting the hour in that you're booked for. I would say though, if they cancel in advance, right? So I would say use your judgment, but 24-hour notice would be required of a cancellation. So if they let you know, like they get a reminder in the morning through EAB. So let's say the appointment's at 6 p.m. and they get a reminder at 8 or 9 or something. And they're like, oh, shoot, I can't make it today. And you're fine with that. Like it didn't put you out. You didn't have plans or whatever. You might not report that time because you didn't work. You didn't show up here. It didn't affect you, right? If you want to say, hey, Roy said 24 hours, go ahead. But anything prior to that, right? If they let you know, hey, I can't make it next week, we've got a game and I won't be here on Monday, that's fine. And you wouldn't report that time just because it's scheduled in the system, doesn't mean you would report it because you didn't really work. So use your judgment, but I think there's some logic there to your scheduled time and then also time worked as well. So if you knew you weren't going to do that appointment, you wouldn't report it. Any questions about payroll stuff? I think I hit most of the scenarios there. I'm going to stop my share. I think I'll let you guys go if you want to go and then answer any questions you have. And then I might stay on and just do some things for the next person. So do you guys have any questions?
Nope.
Ethan? No?
Are we gonna have access to that video? The one
Yeah.
you're recording?
Yes, I'm recording it and I'll do some things that are for the next person, but also probably for you to an extent for the EAB Navigate stuff. Just showing it to you now you'll do it.
And
at
we'll get
school.
the handbook in like an email.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I will finish though, since you have any specific tutor questions with the HR part. Nicole, you're lucky. You're already in HR. I'm just going to hire you. I didn't do it yesterday, but I will do it today, I promise.
Okay.
Ethan and everybody else that might be watching this, to get hired, you have to fill out paperwork, of course, and then also have some identification to take to the HR folks over in the Wool Center. So the Wool Center is over by Vito's and the big brick building over there. You get your IDs there now, so you know where it is, right? That main floor, you'd go to the desk there. So you'll get an email once the academic people have hired you in Workday. There's timeliness to it though, because you have to do that paperwork. You have to do the identification stuff within 2 weeks of that hire date. So what will happen is probably August. Again, this is probably for the person and not you guys so much. I would say around August. When does class start? Probably
The
there.
24th, I want to say. 23rd.
Yes. Yep, that's probably about right. So I would say that they will hire you in Workday around August 14th. That's a Monday. I'm just pulling that date out. It'll be up to them to do it. But you
Okay.
should get an email around that time from Workday saying, welcome to SLU, bring your IDs, fill out all this paperwork. Here's the links, right? And that'll give you a couple of weeks before you would actually work to get all that paperwork done. So the IDs that you need are a photo ID and a legal document. So an active passport takes care of both of those, but not everybody has an active passport. So usually the things people would use is a photo ID, like a driver's license or a state ID. I think even your student ID works, your SLU student ID, but then you need a legal document with that. So that would be typically a social security card or a birth certificate. Usually social security card's easier to walk out of the house with. So getting that.
And they can't be copies of them.
And yes, thank you,
Yes,
Nicole.
that's
Good
what I
job.
did.
Did you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well,
It has to
because
be the real thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. And then, so yeah, Ethan and everybody else watching, it has to be the real card. And that's probably, again, social security card is probably the easiest thing for you to keep track of and not lose and not get your parents mad at you. So, yeah. And then again, the email from Workday will tell you what to do and where to go, and you have to schedule an appointment with them. And that's part of that email. So just make sure you follow those steps within those first 2 weeks of classes.
Okay.
As I said too, you may look for an email from the new Roy sometime in August. I'd say maybe around the 7th, 7, 8, 9 in that area. That would be reminding you of what I just said to bring stuff, but also letting you know a date for a more thorough orientation based on that person's plan, as well as this current situation. Like right now, all this construction has everything a mess. So hopefully by August 28th, around that time, things are a lot easier to work with and there might be a place to go. So you'll learn all that as you get closer. That meeting should also include a lot of the returning tutors. They're great about talking about some of the situations I talked about, but in their own experience instead of me just reading off a sheet. So, all right, great. I think that covers it. The thing I'm going to add to this, if you guys get this, when you guys get this video, is some EAB Navigate stuff. I'll be clicking through it just to show how to enter your availability and things, so that you can benefit from that whenever you get the video.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thanks guys. I look
Thank you,
forward to work. Well, no, I don't look forward to working. That's how I usually finish. I won't work with you. Have a great year, and thanks for joining the tutor roster.
Yeah,
Good luck at your
Good luck
next
at
job, Roy.
Lindenwood.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
But
Okay, I'm gonna pull up. EB Navigate. Let's share screen first. Okay, so in your MySLU tools, you might have different order or different number of tools. You want to go to the EAB Navigate faculty staff. It may It may actually be better for you to go to student. If you have both and faculty staff doesn't get you where you need to go, student's always there for you. So you should, I think you have both. But when you go in, you will see your own page. So I'm going to impersonate one of my tutors. So you see what it looks like. Okay, so when you are a student, you would just see the student home and your courses. One thing to note here is that for some reason, the default term is the medical school. So what you can do, and I'll do it for Allie, is you can change your settings up here and set the default term to the current term. You would have to do this each semester. So you make it fall 23 and save. You could pick a landing page and stuff, but that's probably not a big deal for you guys. So you can see fall classes. And the reason to do that is that when fall starts and fall stuff happens, you would see, your classes and then also the tutoring that you have. And then you can switch once you're in the system as a tutor. So if someone has to put you in EAB Navigate as a tutor, it's part of the process for the student support staff. But you can then switch to staff home. This is where you enter your availability. So you see that Allie is working this summer, but does not have her summer stuff in. She had some fall and some spring and some summer last summer, but she's just kind of working with one person for me. So if you didn't have any time in there or it was like this inactive, you can create new times. So you can add it. And let's say your Monday, Wednesday in the fall look about the same. You can pick multiple days. And let's say you've got time after 2, and you could go till 6 or 7. 2 to 7. Now, 2 o'clock is not a great time because most teams are in practice or maybe an afternoon class or something. So the prime time, if you can do it, is between, I'd say, 5 and 10. You might only say 9, but the reason I say 10 is that there is a study hall monitor on duty in the student success area until 10 p.m. So you should be in company if you stayed until 10. Much past 10 is probably too late. The time that it's active, you could just pick the term because it'll change each term. And then you want to click this add this availability to your personal availability link, and I'll explain that in a moment. This is always for appointments. We don't do drop-ins or campaigns. The meeting type is in person. It could do virtually if student was out of town or sick or whatever. So it's an option, but you wouldn't schedule it that way. It would be scheduled as in person. Then you would discuss getting on Zoom. Care unit for now is student athlete academic support. I don't think that'll change. The location, however, is currently athletic department lobby tutoring. That will likely change to some space in that could stay the same if everyone knew that it meant the student success, or whatever the official name of the new area is, will be a location. However, there's the chance too that each tutor room is a location. So we may schedule out the different rooms in that area. So there's a reservation for it essentially. So that could get more complicated than it needs to be. So there's also a good chance that it just stays as one student success center location. Right now, that doesn't exist. The service is course-based tutoring. And we find you that way. So all of this is important that you have these right. And then you would enter courses. So let's say you were going to be a math tutor for me. You start typing math, and that's the prefix of the classes. And you took college algebra here, did great. And you've taken some calculus as well. A trick there for actual math people is the survey of calculus is actually a business calculus course. So if you're a math person, you probably might not be able to help with the Excel portion of that. So be careful if you are a math person, you may not be a survey of calc person. That's more for business majors. But then pre-calc, calc 1, right? You could do all that. So maybe you're thinking about calc 2. Yep. And then if you look at math, the people that need the most help with math are probably people in intermediate algebra. You may have never taken intermediate algebra. That might be something from, high school, maybe grade school. But the people that need the most help are usually lower level. So you have free reign to decide, I can do that. I can do finite mathematics. You might not know what finite mathematics is exactly. I'm probably know, but you haven't done it. But odds are you're going to be okay to help if you're a math person, even if you didn't take the class. So that's where you might put something like that in. So again, what you're comfortable with is what you're going to enter. This URL, you could take your own Zoom link. Mine's copied there, I think, but you could put in the Zoom, and that way you've got the option. They'll have your Zoom link if you have that option. And then special instructions for students would be something to the effect of all meetings are in person unless otherwise arranged, something like that. Because if that Zoom link's there, they might get confused and think it's on Zoom, but that's just more for in case. Max number of students per appointment. I've said that you can do multiple students, so that's okay in reality, but for scheduling, leave that a 1. That way it looks like you're booked in that time. You don't get accidentally double booked. So make sure that's a 1, and then you would hit save. I'm going to cancel so Ally doesn't have some weird times on there. But one thing you can also do is if once you've built that time and you're entering more time on different days, you don't have to type in all those classes again. You can copy that block and then just tweak the days and times and make it a Wednesday and a Friday and no Sunday, and make it a 6 to 9. And then all of this other stuff and all the classes that took some time to type in are there. And some of that should still be there too. But I don't know, maybe these don't populate each time, but you can make that instruction again as well. So copying is great. Then when I clicked on that personal availability link, that's here as well. Not a huge deal, but you could copy that and send it in an email to someone that wanted to book with you. So if you had a student that you're meeting every Monday at 6, and then they said, hey, can I meet you later in the week? Oh, you're like, oh yeah, but I'm not sure what I have available. Somebody might have booked with me. You could send them the link and then they could book with you through the system versus arranging something at the time. Arranging's fine, but you would have that option if you needed. Here's the space for scheduling target hours. So you can, again, usually put an even number in there because that way you could have back-to-back appointments. Make that a 4 maybe, or a 6 or an 8. Some people put 10 or 12 or 20, and that's a lot. I wouldn't think you'd want to or be able to work that much in terms of the mental drain. But if you want to, you can, but more likely you're going to be in the 2, 4, 6 range in a given week because you're a busy person as well. And you can update those target hours. This box should be left unchecked for now unless somebody else decides they want it to be, but you would block the scheduling for the week when the target is hit. I'd rather be able to know, like I wouldn't ever see you if you blocked it. So it would just, I wouldn't know you were available or that you could do that class. So there might be a limited number of people that can tutor certain classes, and it might be good for the person doing the scheduling to see that you're available, even though you're full, and then potentially be able to add a person to an appointment, get you 2 or 3 people. So you want to leave that block unchecked. I think I got it all. I hope whoever's watching appreciates the detail. I know it took a long time. But it's not too bad. The other thing is Workday, and Workday is a little bit of a complicated process that I covered with the two people on the call, but for the new person coming in, there are some steps I'll try to leave in writing somewhere. All right, go Billikens.